All right. Well, welcome to BSing with Sean K. I'm your host, Sean Kneese, and today is my guest is independent filmmaker, fellow podcaster, YouTuber, and horror movie enthusiast, Steve Craig.
And it's great to be here. And I have to say that your listeners missed probably the best answers that I gave you were before the interview started when I thought you were interviewing me.
Yeah, I just yeah, I forgot to
I'll
do
try
the
to give equally good answers, but if my answers suck, at least your listeners know that I did give good answers. They just missed it.
And this is your second appearance on the show. It was
My second time bullshitting with Sean Kneese.
yeah, and the first time was 2 years ago. Actually, this month, I think,
Was it
2013
2 years
October.
ago?
Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh
And I
my
just
god.
I just had the 2 years of BSing special not too long ago.
Oh my God, I can't. Wow, 2 years ago. So what was I like? Since and that was the last time I talked to you. So
Yeah,
what,
that was when you
what's the
talked about like Sinopia Pictures that the
right?
company had at the time. You talked about getting into the industry, what it's like in LA versus uh, the New York area, and a lot's changed since then. Like for what you
A
told me,
lot has changed. How do I seem different? Do I seem different in any way?
I mean, not really. I guess you seem like Steve Craig. I don't know.
Same old Steve.
Yeah.
That's
But
cool though. Well, people have been telling me for the past couple weeks that I sound sick, and it's awkward because I'm not sick. So it's a
Hmm.
weird thing.
Well, there is
No.
like something going around. I think like some kind of virus. But I don't know.
Yeah, it must be over at the East Coast. Everyone's getting sick, and
Yeah.
they think
And
I'm getting sick.
but
I
since
guess I
then,
sound a little nasally.
you've been doing a podcast. Has that been
Yep.
one of like your main things recently? Is the what is it called? Splat Chat?
Yes, it's called Splat Chat on DIY Horror. It's part of the Fangoria podcast network. And yeah, it became a priority pretty quickly, surprisingly quickly. As soon as Ken from Fangoria reached out and said, let's make a podcast, and wanted me to host it. I was really excited about the idea, so it very quickly kind of just became a priority of mine to put it together and try to make it as entertaining as I can.
And how did he find out about your stuff? Was that through the YouTube channel you do, Cinemansteve, or?
Yeah, I actually knew. I mean, Ken and I have known each other for a long time because we went to film school together. So, yeah, we've known each other for at least I don't know how long, man, like 6 years or something like that. But we would fall out of touch, and then we would kind of reconnect here and there because he started working with Fangoria, and we both bonded on our love for horror movies and cult cinema. And I traveled back. I traveled east not too long ago to get married, and I met up with him, and that's kind of when it went down. I told him, and he did mention the YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Cinemansteve, youtube.com/Cinemansteve. He knew about it. He saw that I was interviewing directors and thought I might be the right guy to host a podcast interviewing DIY horror directors, finding out how they do what they do. Also, what made me qualified for the job was that I'm constantly working on the sets of DIY horror films because I can't seem to get away from them.
And so like what has that been like interviewing people, and like how you get started with that?
Well, it's yeah. How I got started interviewing was really kind of last minute. I started first came the YouTube channel, which was last October. So the YouTube channel is about a year old, and I decided to start kind of. I wanted to just make short, fun videos talking about cult films, talking about films that maybe people have heard of, and maybe want to know a little more about, or diehard fans just kind of like talking about. So I started making October, what was it, a horror binge. I actually attempted to do a video a day, and I lasted a while. I lasted most of October before I had to start slowing down. I think I made about 28 videos or something last October. And the videos kind of varied in terms of popularity. One of the videos has about it might have over 2 million views now. So it did start kind of rising in popularity. And after October ended, I was like, well, do I want to keep doing horror movies? Do I want to start shifting or expanding, giving more variety to the YouTube channel? And I reached out to AFI Fest because I frequent AFI Fest every single year. I basically live at the Chinese Theater. AFI Fest is a film festival that takes place at Grauman's Chinese Theater here in LA, and they are free screenings. And there's about 4 big Hollywood premieres, I'd say something like that, and then a lot of great independent films, and all the tickets are free. So I reached out to them about getting press credit, because even though the tickets are free, if you're a member of the press, you get invited to more stuff. You don't even have to get a ticket to get into the movie. It's like a VIP treatment. And I thought I'd reach out and say, hey, I have this YouTube channel. Do you can I get a press pass? I can come and review the films on the in the festival. And they were surprisingly cool with it. They were just immediately just like, yeah, that sounds good. And I got my press pass. And when I got my press pass, I started getting emails from publicists saying, hey, this whatever XYZ film is premiering at AFI Fest. Hope you review it. And this director is available for interviews. So that kind of put the idea in my head. Like, I can do that. I can just interview directors. Like, that sounds cool. So I started knowing that. I started reaching out to publicists. They continued to reach out to me, and it was just very easy. They were very eager to get people to talk about their movies, and I like talking about movies, so it worked out. So in terms of how I developed as an interviewer, I don't even when I do interviews, I love it. First of all, it's fun, but I try not to think of it as an interview. I don't know what technically the right way to interview is. Maybe that's good, maybe that's not good. But I just want to get as much conversation as possible and make sure that it's focused on, the person I'm interviewing. I'm legitimately interested in this stuff. I'm legitimately interested how this person got their film made, especially independent directors, or when I talk to horror or DIY directors. I'm legitimately interested in how they made it happen, how they, and everything that goes through their heads, and while making the movie, before making the movie, after making the movie, what comes next, what influenced them. So it's easy for me to just chat with these people and figure this stuff out, and learn about more stuff. So that's why I actually stopped writing questions down. That's kind of my thing. I don't come with questions prepared. I just learn as much as I can about the person I'm interviewing, and I interview. Oh, something quit unexpected.
So I guess it's like more authentic that way. Or...
Well, the first person I interviewed was Nick Broomfield, which was a really which was a little nerve-wracking because he's a master of interviewing. Nick Broomfield is the director who he's a documentary filmmaker who kind of revolutionized documentary filmmaking. Some of the more popular ones are Kurt and Courtney. He did that documentary. Sarah Palin, You Betcha. Recently, he did Tales of the Grim Sleeper. A lot of verite films like Tattooed Tears. Anyway, the guy's a great. So for me to go up against him on my first interview was a little nerve-wracking. But I did have all these questions written out, like 3 pages of questions, and I had them sitting at my feet. And I guess when I was doing that, look at that, the interview went okay. But I don't know. There was a way that I felt like I was manipulating it too much because I was like mapping out where I wanted him to go, you know, as opposed to just talking with him, because it would be easy for me. I know enough about Nick Broomfield that all I would have to do is have him talk and I listen. And I think that, you know, and then I respond to what he says, you know. So after that, kind of assessing how it went, I started writing less and less questions. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I realized that the best stuff, interviews that I do are when I just, you know, I know what I'm interested about learning, and I know enough about the person I'm interviewing that I just have to get the conversation going, and then respond, you know, react to what's happening, and just try to get as much out of this person as possible.
So I guess, would you want to do like a combination of everything you're doing, or or do you love like making the films more, and maybe this podcasting thing's just a way to do more of that, or would you like to continue to kind of do both, I guess?
Well, it's always a difficult. I mean, I love doing the podcast. It's a lot of fun. The YouTube channel's pretty fun. Like I said, I love that I'm always meeting people. But you know, if you asked me, you know, I don't know, like 5 years ago, probably less than that, but 5 years ago, I thought I'd ever do like a YouTube channel and a podcast. You know, I never thought that would be something I would do. I never thought it would be something that I would hold as important. And I definitely do. I do enjoy it, and I do think they're both really important, and I'd like to continue them. But as far as writing movies goes, I'm still, I haven't gotten there yet, which is unfortunate. It is the thing that's been my driving force. It's why I'm here in Los Angeles, and it's why I am into film. I'm doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I definitely thought that there would be, and I guess that's why I brought up before that there's a different relationship between a filmmaker and a journalist than, say, a filmmaker and a writer, because I definitely had this hidden agenda for sure. Like, I definitely had a hidden agenda when I started interviewing filmmakers, you know, that it would be like, well, maybe I'd create relationships with filmmakers that might lead to us working together. But I quickly threw that away when I realized that that's a different thing. They are two different things. They don't really help each other out too much, other than just the generalized expansion of one's network. But that said, I'd be lying if I said doing podcasts and YouTube channels is the height of what I want to do, and I just want to continue doing that and build more and more on that. I would love that. That would be a cool ass life if my entire livelihood became doing a podcast and or a YouTube channel. I would accept that life and be like, man, that is a bitchin' life. You know, but if we're talking preference, you know, I never thought I'd be doing a podcast until Ken literally said, do you want to do a podcast? Before that, I never thought for a second I'd like to do a podcast. You know, now that I'm doing it, it's great. It's a lot of fun, and I'd love to continue doing it. But the preference would definitely be writing films, and that in itself is still this uphill battle. That's so many. You know, everyone out here in Los Angeles is just getting screenwriting wise. Not everyone, obviously. A lot of people do really, really great. A lot of people almost, you know, make their film and then never make another one. But it is an uphill battle for a lot of people that just don't have connections, that don't have the people that are taking the time to read their stuff, understandably so, because of how super saturated it is. But you know, but as difficult as that is, still the prize that I have my eye on. You know, that's still what I have as a preference and a priority in my life goals. But hey, podcast and YouTube channel, that's cool too.
But and I guess it's kind of in a way using some of those same skills, like, because I mean it's different from making a film, but they're both like productions in their own sense, I guess. Like,
yeah, especially when I started doing. If you watch like my earlier YouTube from a year ago, I definitely used it as a way to keep, I guess, a little sharp in producing videos. And I definitely, I used a lot of After Effects stuff. I slowed it down as I went on, but I definitely thought of each one as a little movie, especially the last year's October horror binge. I definitely thought of each one as a little movie, and I tried to make it flow like its own short narrative. And I had one fan who reached out to me, well, I had a few people, but I had one fan in particular that really that saw each one as a video art piece, and I thought I was very flattered by that, because I definitely put a little bit of thought into that, making each one kind of flow like a video art piece. So that was cool to hear it. But it definitely, and it also writing, it definitely kept me sharp, just generally writing, it's writing something you have to keep doing, as often as you can, a little bit every day to get good at it. And, so writing a video a day, writing the script to a video, some of them I actually improvise. Well, a lot of them I improvised, but still it's the same idea. You're piecing together this thing. So it definitely did help a little bit in the general filmmaking sense.
So that's like, I guess, would you suggest anybody else into like film or other forms of media consistently make their own content, I guess? Or?
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't have to be a YouTube channel, but I think, I mean, for me, it was like every creative project that I was working on, not including like the professional video stuff I did, like every creative piece I was working on, because it's film, so it's mostly a collaborative effort, and every single piece I was working on fell through for one reason or another. We're gonna make a movie, and then everyone hates each other a month later, and the movie doesn't happen. We're gonna make a movie, and then funding falls through and doesn't happen. We're gonna make a movie, and then everyone forgets that we're gonna make a movie, so the movie doesn't happen. It's been 2 years. It's been at that point, like a year and a half of that, just every single creative thing falling through. And before I knew it, I'm looking back from, the 4 years between graduation and now, thinking like, oh my God, I haven't made a creative piece that I'm proud of, and something's got to happen. And I could have made, my own, I could make, video art or music videos or whatever, but I don't know. I just got this idea that I have to make videos, and I have to make films that, or I have to make pieces that I am completely self-reliant. Like I only need to depend on me. So I can't say like, oh, this didn't happen because so-and-so didn't show up, or so-and-so, like it is all up to me based on the things that I have, the resources I have. I have my camera. I have, like I have my editing software. I have some sound equipment. And I have a lot of freaking knowledge, a lot of useless ass knowledge about cult cinema. I have that all ready to go. So what can I do with it? Well, I can start making videos about cult cinema. So that was my outlet, definitely. For anyone though, who's a creative type, who's not making art, who's not creating, yeah, it'll definitely drive you crazy, in more than it should. It'll drive you nuts, because you're already a self-inflicted, artist. You're already this crazy asshole artist guy who has the weight of the world on his shoulders. For even if you don't have any real problems, you feel all the weight of the world on you, and you gotta have the outlet to let it out. So yeah, I definitely. That was as silly as it is, because the videos are so silly, and they're really short, and they're little, but yeah, it was something where it was like, I can do it without depending on anyone else. I can just start doing it, and I did, and I actually kept up with it, and I kept going, and I got I got interviews and press passes and VIP passes and party invitations and all that, by myself, because at some point, when you really believe that, you can make something, happen, but it's everyone else that's holding you back. I mean, which, and you start to feel resentful and you think, oh, like, then fine, like, show the world, go out and do it and keep moving and keep going. That said, I mean, just going off on, talking to other people like me, it definitely is difficult. It's very trying to continue to make art at times. When this, you have these real high moments where it's really awesome, you're doing a great job, everyone's complimenting you, you're getting all these views. But there's always going to be difficult times where it's hard to continue, where you're not getting the acknowledgement, I guess, that you were hoping for, or you're not getting the reaction that you were hoping for, or the things that you're doing you're not proud of anymore, or they're not as great, the second or sixth time you see them, and suddenly you're not sure should you keep going, and that's always a really difficult thing to decide. Like, should I keep doing this? Like, is there a reason to keep doing it? Does it matter? We all, and then you think, like, all right, like, this went really, I was successful here and here, but, like, is that enough to keep me on this path? And then you start to doubt, and then you realize how much work it is, and it's like, do I really want to spend all night editing 2 videos? Do I really want to keep reaching out to people, putting myself out there, risking embarrassment, asking for VIP passes, things like that? Do I want to keep going outside of my comfort zone and networking? And the hardest thing for me, like, promoting, because then you put your video up and you have to promote the video and you have to go all over Reddit, which I've never done before doing the YouTube, and promote, and you have to do all this. And it's always like, oh, do I really want to do that? But that's something you gotta really talk to yourself about, because if it's something you love, then you gotta love it even when you hate it. I don't know.
And has the YouTube been a networking tool as well? Like, have you found other YouTubers doing similar things, or maybe some that are creating films as well on there?
Yes. Other YouTubers like that have, I've networked with other YouTubers that have channels like mine. And it doesn't have a lot, the relationships don't really last very long, because it's tough to keep a conversation going through, like, YouTube Messenger, which is a pain in the ass to, like, figure out every time.
It's a lot easier to use YouTube now. It's like,
yeah. But I definitely, I mean, doors have opened because of doing the YouTube channel. It added a sort of authenticity to me, I think. When you go, I mean, you got to make yourself look like you're worth something, I suddenly it's like, just the people are very superficial. We all have it in us. Having a name tag around you that says you're a member of the press when you go to a festival, is different than someone who's waiting in line, handing in their ticket. Someone who, is going into the party as a member of the press suddenly has more professional clout in the eyes of everyone around them. This is important. I went most of my life, and by most, I mean every year up until this past year, not thinking about my physical appearance at all, not very much, not caring about the way I look, not thinking that that I would find my way because I have a certain creativity that people would just kind of appreciate. But the fact is, I mean, everyone has a superficial thing about them. I And everyone needs, especially when you're out here, you need to impress people. That's a really important thing. So yeah, any little thing that you can find to kind of help your image, and help your branding. And I don't mean, you need to be a Barbie doll. I'm not talking like, you need to be a clean cut Barbie doll or Ken doll. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to have like and you need to have an image. And you need to understand what that image is. And you need to start working on this brand so that people know you as that guy. So that when people talk, they talk about that guy. Like I was talking about my interviewing. So, suddenly, so now I have something as opposed to before when I was just kind of the guy that would show up to a festival and I would try to get in a conversation with Phil about film. And I would, you talk about all the different things that I wanted to do and that I was doing, and I was editing this, but I was directing that, but I was, writing this and that. I suddenly had this kind of focal point. I have a YouTube channel. I interview directors. We go into depth about things that, other interviewers might not go into. That became my angle so that people could start talking about or he reviews films a certain way, or he interviews a certain way, and that's what happened. People started talking about my interviewing, and I would get emails from other filmmakers or other PR publicists just saying like, hey, we liked your interview with we liked your interview with Peter Strickland. We'd love it if you covered this film. Like, can you interview this director for this film? We liked the way you did it, so we want you to do that for him. So when things like that happen, I think, well, I'm on the right track because they recognized that I had a brand that I was pushing, and I successfully pushed it so that, when they thought, well, we need an interviewer, that guy is the guy to do it. So the YouTube channel absolutely helped with that.
And it's something consistent, I guess, is what's important too, right? Like, because like
yeah,
you're saying,
yeah,
like what you're saying, like instead of saying I was editing this and that, or
yeah, I mean that's one of the tricky things about Hollywood, and obviously you want to experiment and find what works for you. But I think at the end of the day, you do have to find what works for you, and that was that was advice that I got from my friend filmmaker John Kneese, and also his girlfriend, the lovely actress Alexis Kendra. They both actually, I think, separately on separate occasions told me like that's the one thing that they don't tell you in film school, and the one thing that people really overlook that's one of the most important elements of Hollywood is you need to brand yourself. You need to find what you are, and I'm paraphrasing. I don't know exactly what it is. It was years ago they told me this, but you need to find what you are and exemplify it, and accentuate that. So like I said, it doesn't have to be a Ken doll, but let's say if it is a Ken doll, you need to be the best Ken doll. You need to let everyone know you are the Ken doll. That's what you are, so that when people are like, we need a Ken doll, he's the Ken doll to hire. When people leave, they thought like, what? How about that Ken doll? Like it's in their head. This person is a Ken doll. So that is something, when you come out here, you're willing to do kind of anything, and you're kind of going around. I like this, I like that. It's tough to find yourself. But
yeah,
the YouTube channel and the podcast and doing that kind of stuff definitely helped for me. It definitely helped find some kind of brand to go off of, and you kind of find this, it's like finding a character. And, and I always think, I always think, it's not just people in front of the camera, because you know that about like actors, that about like Christopher Walken, who's just so Christopher Walken. He is just, He is Christopher Walken. He is this thing, this immovable force.
So much that they'll say like someone else is a Christopher Walken type or whatever. Like if they or they're looking for that type, like he's his own type, I guess, in a way.
Exactly right. Right. So when they're looking for a certain thing, he's the guy to go to. He branded himself, and he's always that. He's always this character. That's why they call it a character actor. But think about David Lynch. Think about your favorite directors, from Kevin Smith to David Lynch to most iconic directors. I mean, don't they kind of play a character that correlates with their film work? That they kind of, David Lynch talks and looks like his films in a way. He always does interviews in this certain way. He has this the way he presents himself, the way he carries himself. They all kind of correlate: his fashion, his art, his music, his films. All correlate the same way that Kevin Smith, is this same guy. You can see him out of his Quentin Tarantino. Every interview you watch, they play a certain character, kind of, whether they're aware of it or not. Let's say it's completely authentic and they're not aware that that's what they are. The people that get the most recognition are the people that can find a consistent and powerful brand. Where it almost becomes, it's almost like creating your own kind of universe, That's just the pattern I see in Hollywood. And I think, that's something that people would easily overlook. And I think that's a really big challenge. That's a really enormous part of the challenge.
And so, what can you say about, I guess, some of the movies you've been working on as an assistant director, and some of the ones you have planned for the future? And does it differ from the stuff you were doing when we last spoke, impressions and some of your earlier work?
It definitely, it differs. Impression. My student film, which turned out to be called Stagnation, Amen. It was such a student film, and I think I briefly brought up that things you're not proud of anymore and how difficult that is. Watching that film and realizing that I'm not as proud of it as I thought I'd be was a really tough thing. Because of how much I put into it, and it just doesn't look the way that I want it to look. And I really feel like I was chronologically screwed because I feel like literally film students that graduated the year I graduated and before me, shot things on crappy HD cameras, or cameras that just not crappy, they worked for videography, but they look so video, and they look so, everything just looks really harsh and ugly. I feel like it was right after my class, film students really raised the bar a lot, and suddenly every single film that was coming out of film school just looks legit. Film students are good at what they do. It's scary now. It's everyone, they're just good at it now. They have with the rise of DSLR cameras and using interchangeable lenses, which was not a luxury a lot of us had. Suddenly films are looking like films, and it was right after I made my film. I go back to my film and I'm like, oh man, it's just not what I wanted to be at all. And like I said, I didn't create for a while. I wasn't creating. It was around the time I was doing YouTube that I started assistant directing and working on people's creative films again, because of that general sense that I was networking more. So I was meeting more people. And at some point, I was kind of I'll just start volunteering, or I'll just start offering, to help film makers whenever they need it. And just, I guess, that kind of, that kind of friendly offer, got people interested, or just got people to know me and say, hey, I do actually need an assistant director. So yeah, I started doing stuff like that and helping people out. And yeah, I would say that there's a stark contrast between what I did back in film school and the films that I'm working on now, because films can look really great, really, really good, for a fraction of the cost. And this is coming from a guy that really loves raw film. I love films that are shot on VHS and standard definition. Like I like stuff like that, and 8 Super 8, and but people don't respond to it the way you'd like. I like it, maybe you like it, but people don't respond to it. People do care about the way the film looks aesthetically, and the way it sounds, and the quality of the visual and the audio. Even if they don't know that that's what they like, that's what, it makes a huge difference. And now, more than ever, you really can get this great film made for a fraction of the cost that looks like it's a lot grander than it is. So that's kind of the films I've been working on. I have been very involved very involved in DIY horror filmmaking. Right now, I'm assistant directing a film that is called Running with Fear. At least that's the working title. Directed by Brian Farmer, and it's been a really wild experience. It's an ultra low budget slasher film. So we're constantly trying to find out how to get the biggest bang for our buck. I'm scheduling it out now, and we're squeezing a ton of shooting into one day, trying to get as much as we can. It's extremely panicky and difficult, but the final product is going to be awesome. It's like we got the red. We're shooting on the red camera and the Red Dragon, and we've got a great lighting kit that we got extremely affordable through basically contributions and sound equipment and all this stuff. So we were able to put money into getting some names. We got Eric Roberts. We got Shelley Regner from Pitch Perfect, who's fantastic. We got a few names in there, and I know, even though we're gonna burn the candle at both ends, that we're gonna come out of it with a quality movie. And that was not the way it was back in 5-6 years ago for me. It was like, ooh, I hope this is good, and you see it and it's like, I don't know. So the quality of work has improved greatly.
So is there any other scripts you have planned for the future of your own, I guess, projects like Stagnation Amen?
Yeah, absolutely. Last year I wrote 2 full feature screenplays, and I showed basically no one them. Isn't that stupid? Right now, I wrote a bunch of other stuff, almost half screenplays, synopses, treatments, short stories. I try to keep writing, and I'm very passionate about it, but it's so stupid. I don't show people. I don't know who to show, where to go with it. I hate going back to friends that I haven't seen in a while and going like, hey, want to read my fucking story? And that's all on me. But I am working on a screenplay right now. It's called Scotty's Head. It's about what happens when an actor fully immerses himself into a role. Let's say the romanticized story that people say about how Heath Ledger was killed by playing the Joker. It's inspired by that kind of thing, how actors are put in a very dark place. And I thought, well, what if that was the horror? So I'm writing a screenplay about Scotty, who just completely immerses himself in this role because he has, he's in the same kind of swimming in the same cesspool we all are out here in Los Angeles, where it's just, there's no gratification. There's no, and he feels that this film is finally his chance to get some kind of satisfaction and feel fulfillment. So he decides to completely immerse himself in this character, and it's a dark character, and it's a very dark film that's being made. So he starts to, so we as the audience kind of join him on this journey, losing track of, the film and reality, the two often parallel to each other. It's a cool ass story. I'm proud of it, and I'm working on the script obsessively. I've never rewritten something so often. I'm on like draft 5, and I haven't even gotten anyone's notes or opinions yet. That's just how, I'm really trying to chisel this out finely. It is a challenging piece, especially because you're dealing with a film within a film. But I think it's going to be really awesome. One, it's going to be the one that I show people. I'm actually going to show people this one. I'll even send it to you if you'll read it. Mm-hmm. And two, I think it's an attainable project. It's and that's something that I do think a lot of independent writers like me have to have in the back of their heads. What are your resources? Are you writing a $7 billion movie? Because if so, who's going to make it? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to trust that you have what it takes to make a $7 billion movie, or even write a $7 billion movie, or even give you the opportunity to pitch your $7 billion movie? The scripts that I wrote prior to this one were a little more on the grand scale, and this script that I'm writing now, Scotty's Head, is very attainable. It's basically all in one location. It's 3 main actors, about them making this DIY movie. So yeah, I'm thinking this is the one that should get made, actually.
And I guess it's one that maybe people in the industry can relate to on some level, even if it's going to a bit of an extreme of him like actually becoming that character, like those two words.
Yeah, it's definitely an extreme, and I definitely hope for that. And I'm not doing it in a way. I'm trying not to do it in a way that I know, in a way that I have experienced what happens, to bigger Hollywood actors. Like I know I compared it to Heath Ledger, but like I said, the romanticized version of what people say. We don't really know what happened to Heath Ledger in his head, but people kind of romanticize it in their own way, that he was killed by his character, that kind of thing. The film kind of approaches it in that way, that all the characters are first timers. This guy's never starred in a movie before. The director in the movie has never directed a movie before. So I'm not trying to do it in a way that it's like, this is how it is in Hollywood. It's like, this is how my characters are making their movie for the first time, as I make my movie for the first time,
And I guess like what drew you to like the more low budget horror, or just like I guess the less commercial kind of films in the first place?
It's tough. Well, it's a little tough to chase back, only because I guess it's not tough to chase back. I have a killer memory. Being a kid in a VHS rental house back in the early 90s, like the cover art of independent horror films was so cool. I wanted to watch that stuff so bad, and I wasn't allowed to. So instead I watched Universal horror films, or classic horror films, or Hammer horror, which was also so cool. But eventually I was really interested in knowing about these films that did not have any relation to the Hollywood system. I mean, that intrigued me so much. Like, what are these movies? Who's making them? What are they like? Why are they so different? Why aren't they played in theaters? Who are their fans? How are they getting out there? That was something that interested me pretty early on. And then in high school, meeting a couple people that had similar interests that kind of guided me, that started me off. I had a friend tell me about Trauma, and I was like, Trauma, what's that? Well, they put out all these movies of people that just make their own movie and have total freedom. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And even though that guy that told me about it didn't know that much about trauma, I learning about what it is, went just balls to the wall, constantly on their website, like looking up all their different movies. Which one do I want to buy next? Buy as many as I can. And then, kind of getting into that the fact that they were violent and full of sex and violence and just irreverence, I guess. I loved that because as a teenager, especially because it is rebellious in the film world, because it doesn't hold itself to any standard that has it completely detaches itself from Hollywood in all senses, in all standards, more than independent film does now. Because now it's almost like independent film is only independent because they don't have the money to be a Hollywood film. That's what independent is to me now. But then, when you had this splatterpunk and these, these straight to VHS horror films, there was this complete detachment. It was its own world. It had its own standards, and it was be as crazy or be complete self-expression or embrace the freedom of a completely, truly independent filmmaker, and it gave the middle finger to Hollywood and mainstream cinema. That's cool. I wanted to see more of that, and because violence, sex and violence was kind of like a trademark of a lot of those movies, that became something that I did kind of seek out for a little while. Was how violent can it be? How depraved can it be? What's the darkest? What's the most disturbing? And that's a world you start going down this mudslide. There's so much all over the world. It becomes a thing of interest to kind of dig deeper, to kind of figure out like where can I go in the depths, in the deep annals of forbidden cinema. Like that became so interesting to me. Just and again, who are these people? How are these movies getting made? Why are they being made? What are they like? I wanted to learn more and more about that, and then learning about the auteurs and other filmmakers that really stood on their own and made and followed their own path, I guess, stayed clear of any mainstream influence. That's always something that I'm going to admire for sure.
And I guess it's an alternative that maybe a lot of people don't know about, I guess, because a lot of people just think it's, I guess, like blockbuster Hollywood or nothing, I guess.
I'm so surprised at how many people are exactly like what you said. It's like, and I mean, even here in Los Angeles, I never assume that, they talk about hipsters, like, oh, you've probably never heard of this. Like, I never assume that people don't, well, I assume people don't know, like, the deepest, darkest annals of cinema, most people don't, and that's totally fine. But in terms of like independent film nowadays, or we're talking like Richard Linklater, like that kind of level of independence, which is still pretty mainstream. I'm shocked at how many people don't even know, just like what you said, that there is film anywhere outside of like major blockbuster. Mm-hmm. That is a surprising amount of people that are only aware of major blockbuster. And you don't want to judge those people, but how can you not? I mean, and it's like we talked about outside of the show, outside of doing this episode, we talked about television becoming the more popular medium.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, I think more people are aware of David Lynch now because of the strange rise of popularity of Twin Peaks, to the point where now they're rehashing it. And a lot of the auteurs and a lot of our modern day auteurs are moving to television to get, I guess, I don't know, I think it does boost their popularity quite significantly.
And now a lot of the movies are just sequels or remakes of old films.
It's like cinema. It's almost it's almost like cinema is suffocating itself. Like there's so much, and there's so much great film. Like there really is just so much fantastic independent cinema out there now. And it's and it's almost sad to think you'll probably never see 0.00, or, I'm sorry, you'll probably only see about 0.0001% of it. It's, and at the same time, none of it is getting the popularity or the visibility that film used to. Just in general, film used to. At least there was wider range of films that were being played in a mainstream theater. Like you had mid budget level films in the 90s and 80s and so on. That Blue Velvet, for instance, was still attained mainstream popularity, but was not a blockbuster, major picture in terms of grandiosity. But it's a shame. Like now, it's almost like film is just suffocating itself. Everything's just kind of buried in this big mass grave of independent film, where they hope to get digital distribution, or they hope that Netflix kind of puts it on the recommended for you category. I think that it's kind of sad.
So like that whole, I guess, market of making independent films that are meant to be independent films, not trying to be something bigger, is gone now, is what you're saying? Like there's no more like the
no, there are definitely filmmakers now that are completely rebellious, and there's some rebellious filmmakers and some wild visionaries out there. But I think because of the oversaturation of independent cinema, the movies that get visibility to a market are films that can hold a candle to or stand up to the production value of a Hollywood film. The closer you can achieve a simulation of Hollywood, or the closer you can emulate a Hollywood production, the more chances you have at achieving more visibility or a larger market, if that makes sense. While before there was larger markets for different, variety of a larger variety of production value.
And you were saying like that you think a lot of the I guess more creative kind of aspects that were in certain filmmakers is transferring to TV is because people have shorter attention spans and they want quicker kind of episodes they watch instead of a full.
Well, that's my theory. I don't know. Yeah, my theory is that television works for our generation. This world here that we're in now, this generation. It works more than film because it's incremental commitment. It's not. People do want fast, and they don't. I do think people are afraid of commitment. So it is kind of like the difference of like, do you want to sit down for 2 hours? This might not be, or do you want to sit down and watch a 45-minute episode? Then you go on to the next episode. I was like, wow, that was really good. You go on to the next one. Before you know it, you watched 5 episodes. But you only had to commit to 45 minutes at a time, as opposed to committing to this long movie that you may or may not enjoy. That's my theory, because I know how our generation is definitely quick fix. Everyone kind of knows it, but it's like, man, it's insane to the point. Like YouTube, one of the most important things on YouTube is getting to the point. And you could see, like, if you just search any YouTube videos, like if someone has 1 minute of introduction that's not relevant to the topic, you will just get, like lambasted. It will be onslaught of hate. Like get to the point, like no one cares what you have to say. You know, like that was something I observed before doing my YouTube channel.
That's why a lot of the popular YouTubers have like the rapid jump cuts and like the quick talking and all that. I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's sad that that's what it takes. You know, but it is. That's
just
what
being
it takes.
very opinionated with what they're saying too.
They are.
Oh yeah, usually the more popular ones, if they're giving a view on something, they just have to be like very sure that they're right about what they're saying.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Yeah. Well, they need to show their authenticity. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about with finding your brand. You know, it's the same with a YouTuber where you know they need to find this brand and accentuate that. You know, the angry video game nerd. He found a character. He had to really fucking own that character. You know, if you know the angry video game nerd.
No, what is it? Gaming channel?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's he's one of the more famous YouTubers that I know. I used to watch his videos. That he reviews video games from like the 80s or you know, classic Nintendo games. Yeah, he's like real pissed off. He's always drinking beer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like, and that's his character. He's constantly cursing. So like he gets really, really angry about video games. And every episode that you know, and it worked and people liked it. And every episode, you know, you clicked on it and it was him getting really, really angry and profaning and you know, doing his act. And he had to stay true to that for a while before, you know, and then he tried other channels, but it was always a very, you know, simply stated, you know, brand and character. And that's what, you know, it's the same. Yeah, it's definitely the same thing for YouTube. Got to find your brand and got to push that brand.
And I guess what's the latest news with like your podcasts and your YouTube channel and everything, and what do you have planned for the future?
Okay, so the YouTube channel, I am making new videos. I've been really slacking on that. It's a really tough thing to keep going, especially with the podcast, to keep both of those things going. But this October, I'll be talking about cult films again, the way I used to back last October. So check that out, youtube.com/Cinemansteve. And as far as the podcast goes, we just released last week the great first episode, which I'm very proud of, where I interviewed James Balsamo, the CEO and founder of Acid Bath Productions, who is extremely DIY. So he was the perfect guy to launch this whole podcast off with. We talk about how he writes, directs, produces, acts in, does the models for, and distributes his own films. And he's made 5 films in the past 5 years. He makes about a film a year, maybe even a little more. It's crazy. He works hard. So it was cool learning about him. And then we also have a bunch of other sexy, zany, and strangely informative segments. You get to hear classic horror read in this orgasmic, almost pornographic way, like episode 1, our own Naughty Naomi, who has a sexy sex kitten voice, read us an excerpt from H.P. Lovecraft, and kind of a way of getting those people, getting everyone involved in classic literature. And other great segments like our own Chris Flynn teaching us about different eras and different facets of horror and genre filmmaking. He taught us about Giallo, the history of Giallo, which was very fascinating. So I'm going to keep doing these different segments each episode. That's what I'm going to kind of play with. I think there might be some new segments that come in and old segments that go. That's one of the things I wanted to work with. And you can download the first episode now. I don't know, search Splat Chat or something on your podcast app. Subscribe to it. The next episode, I have no idea. It's probably due in a couple days, and I have to put it together. I know it's going to be great, though, because I have a bunch of interviews lined up with directors that are currently showing their films at the Screen Fest here in LA. I did get my press credential for a Screen Fest. It took them a little bit, but I'm setting up interviews now. Some great films being shown. So I don't know who's going to be in episode 2, but I know that it's going to be awesome because I saw some really cool stuff and I talked to some really cool film directors, and I'm looking forward to some really great interviews this upcoming week.
And I guess, where would you one day like to be, like, with all this, I guess?
I still want to write movies. But I would like for people to hear Splat Chat on DIY filmmaking, because I think it's a really cool podcast, and I would love to keep doing it. And I'm not going to keep doing it if people don't listen to it. And I think if people listen to it, they're going to like it, and then I'm going to like it, and I'm going to want to keep doing it, and they're going to want to keep hearing it. So I definitely would like to see Splat Chat on as many iPhones and mobile accessories as possible. Tell people about it, especially people that like film, especially people that like horror and want to make their own, because you're going to learn about things that they don't tell you in film school, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than film school because it's mo fucking free. So there's no reason to not download it and check it out. So yes, I would like to see in the future. I would like to continue to do Splat Chat on DIY horror or something in that realm. I'd like to keep doing this kind of thing. I think that I will continue to interview directors no matter what, because I love talking to them. I love hearing their story. I love movies. I love that movies are being made by people that do it by themselves. I'll always think that's awesome, and I'll always talk to people that do it and learn from them. And but man, I want Scotty's head to get made too. Like that's.
Any final things you want to say, about anything you've talked about, or just anything maybe we didn't cover?
Well, first of all, I definitely want to just cover my own ass and say everything that I said is just where I am right now. The thing is that the one thing I want to say is that people in Hollywood, people that are like us, they're so eager to give advice, and to claim that they know what it takes and they know how to get there, and they want to help each other out because in our hearts we're all kind of good people. We do want to be the one that helps our friends out. For me, I can only say that my opinions on how to make it or how to make things work and blah blah blah. I'm still trying. I'll be the first to admit I'm still trying to figure it out. I think anything I say is because that's where I'm at right now. How I have observed, the industry, how I have observed it from my standpoint. So I want to make that clear, because my advice might be, if you want to call it advice, my observations, let's say, might be worth something. They might be helpful. But at the same time, I don't have any clear answers. Other than that, I just want to say, download Splat Chat. You have no reason not to. It's going to be awesome. It's a cool ass podcast. It's got sexiness, it's got information, and it's just fun. And also Cinemansteve, youtube.com/Cinemansteve. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter, but I don't go on either of those as Cinemansteve. So it doesn't bother me that I don't have many friends on that. I've got a good amount of subscribers on YouTube, but I'd like to have a lot more. So you have no reason to not subscribe. Damn, I haven't put a video up in a few months anyway, so it's not even like I'm going to litter your feed. Just go ahead and subscribe. There's no reason not to. And when I do make videos, you're going to think they're fun because I have fun making them.
All right. Well, I think that does it for this Halloween special of BSing with Sean K. Because, we've been talking about horror and all that. It's Halloween, around Halloween time.
Yeah, that counts.
Yeah. So, thanks again, Steve, for coming on.
Sean, thank you for having me a second time. I don't know how you put up with me.
Oh, it's so much. Yeah, anytime. We'll probably do a 3.0 like at some point, I guess, once you've made it as a film director and all that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's next month.
And I should have more episodes coming soon, so stay tuned.